Hey everybody, my name is Matt Pierce. I am the Learning and Video Ambassador for TechSmith Corporation. So happy to be with you all today. Grateful you could join me. We're going to be talking about basics of screen recording. It's going to be awesome. We're going to get into mostly the recording side of things, get you set up, get really ready to prepare to make a screen recording. We're going to go through details. We'll answer any questions you got out there, but we're so happy to have you with us and excited just to be able to talk with you guys and make you guys give you a chance to progress your levels and skills. But before we do that, of course, one of the things we talk about a lot here when we go live every week is the TechSmith Academy. TechSmith Academy is a free online learning platform that you can go and learn things like screen recording. Got a new course just released last week. We've got things about script writing, storyboarding, about lighting your videos if you're going to make a on-camera appearance. We've got all sorts of topics that are out there. They're all free. Just go. You sign up with the TechSmith ID, which is free to get. And then you go learn. And so go check those things out. We've got a lot of great courses out there. We're trying to add content here and there as we go. So it's well worth the time to go see if there's something that might aid you. So today, no guest today, it's just me, so I'm going to be monitoring the chat and thinking about okay, how do we do this in a way that's going to hopefully make a lot of sense to you guys, but really want to do in honor of launching a screen recording course. First, let me tell you a little bit about that course because it's something I spent a long time on, and it was really started in 2019. If you go to the TechSmith Academy, you'll see it's the very first course option. We shot it in 2019. We actually recorded all the videos last year, but project work piled up and weren't able to get to it until releasing it just recently. The idea is if you've never really made a screen recording other than maybe something really quick and kind of one-off, it's going to walk you start to finish through the process. But today, in honor of that, what I want to do is take some questions. I also want to just talk about kind of the steps that I use when I think about making a screen recording. Now, if you're watching this and you're saying, screen recording, I've heard of that, but what is it really? Let's get into that first and foremost, because I think it's important. I don't want to make any assumptions about what people do and don't know. Now, a screen recording is pretty simple. It is literally like it sounds. It's recording whatever's on your screen. Now, this has a lot of applications, and I think this is maybe where it might be helpful to think about is, one, are you recording your screen like an application, a piece of software? Are you recording a presentation like a PowerPoint or Keynote? Are you recording the mouse movements or anything that's literally anything that's showing on your screen? Now, what I'm doing right now with a camera, this technically is not screen recording. Later on, I'm going to be showing my screen. Is that screen recording? Yes, it could be considered a screen recording. And the cool thing is screen recordings, you can make them super formal. You can really plan them out, make a really polished video from them. You can insert them with camera video. You can just I make a lot of quick videos that are one-offs that are going to just be for quick informational purposes that may only ever get used the one time. And it might be let's say I make a video talking about the live stream, what I'm doing. Well, maybe 30 people will watch it, maybe 20 people, but after that, in a month or two, no one's going to watch it. And I love screen recordings for that purpose because it doesn't take me a long time to make those recordings. And if I get rid of them, dispose of them, if you will, that's it. They're done for it, but it didn't cost much. Now, the things that you'll see in the TechSmith Academy tend to be more evergreen, kind of longer lasting. We've invested a lot more time into those. And so, you can have screen recordings like that as well. So you got a whole broad spectrum and flavor of things that you can do. So let's get started into starting to think about making a screen recording. Today, I'm going to be using Camtasia 2020 as the screen recorder of choice. Now, if you're using a different tool, you could use Snagit, which is also a TechSmith product. There's a handful of other tools depending on the platform you're on and what you're trying to accomplish. That's okay. I want to talk conceptually about some of the things that you need to know. I don't want to necessarily teach you about using Camtasia, although that happens along the way. If you need to learn more about Camtasia, TechSmith has a ton of awesome tutorials that are all free, freely accessible. We also have a certification program that will go deep. So if you're in the chat today, one thing that I'd love to hear, first of all, where are you coming from? Where are you watching this at? And what are you trying to do with screen recording? What's your next screen recording project? And then, of course, if you've got any questions, I'll do my best to kind of look over here, look at the questions. So we'll definitely dig into questions in a little bit as we get going here. So one of the first considerations is always, I mean, there's some basics, right? Like, are you going to script it? Are you not going to script it? What's your content? Who's your audience? We're not going to get into that too much because we talk a lot about that, but I want to get into some more of the kind of concepts of the mechanics. So one of the first things that I think where I see a lot of people struggle is with just what size to record at. And there's people that we can debate this. Hey, we've got one from Dallas. Thank you for tuning in. I'm sure it's a lot warmer there today than it is here in Michigan. So in the size recording question, we actually have to look ahead. Look ahead to the future of this video. If we want to know what size to record at, the answer lies in what size you're going to end up at. And if you can answer that question, like I know it's going to go on YouTube and I want it to be 1080, that gives me at least my minimum size. We can go bigger, but it gives us at least the minimum size. If we know we're going to go to Instagram, television, or something like that where it's doing a vertical video, that's okay. You need to think about that then, and that's going to help you determine the size. Now, there's things we're going to think about after that as well. Awesome. We got, man, look at this. We got Lansing, Jacob, nice. Hey, we're basically neighbors. I'm just down in Jackson. We got Seattle, Spain, Louisiana, Sacramento, Detroit, Columbus, Ohio. Man, you guys are all over. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is awesome. So we got our size minimum, right? Go to the end place where you need it to be, what it's going to look like there. And then the question is what are you going to show? Because if what you're going to show, like how's it going to display and where's your audience going to watch it? If you plan that your audience is going to watch on a mobile device, you've got some questions to think about. Like, is it going to be something they can easily see like this? If I record a horizontal video and I watch it like this, that could be problematic, right? Like, oh. So we're going to want to think through some of these kind of design decisions so that we get the right kind of what they call aspect ratio. And if you're not familiar with that term, basically aspect ratio is a ratio of height to width. So, or width to height, depending on which one you're using. So for instance, a very common aspect ratio is 16:9. And that applies to a lot of sizes. So 1280 by 720, or 720p is a 16:9 aspect ratio. 1920 by 1080, which is 1080p, is in some ways we call it, is also a common 16:9 aspect ratio. Your vertical video, I don't know, your Mac, if you have a MacBook Pro, your screen is not 16:9. I think it's 16:10. But a lot of monitors are 16:9 naturally. So I know this is kind of conceptual and it's a little bit of math. But again, we want to start at the end, think about what size you want it to be, and then work backwards through some of those questions. Because when we get to Camtasia, and we'll get in there in just a second, or whatever your screen or tool preferences is, you can then start recording. And now a couple thoughts. If you're going to record, if your screen only gives you a 16:9 window for viewing purposes, that's going to be the maximum you record at. Like, for instance, I have two monitors. I have a monitor over here, which is a 4K monitor. It's really big, and so I can get really big recording, which I don't always recommend. You're going to see some performance issues. It's hard to deal with sometimes, but I can do easily 1920 recording or bigger. Over here, I've got a MacBook laptop, and so I've got a 16:10, and it often catches me. I forget that it's not a 16:9, and so I got to adjust for that recording size. So, Andrew, no, I say no math. Yeah, no. We're not. Luckily, the programs will help us do math. We just have to be thinking about kind of the end state, and then it's all just relative. Actually, let's do this. Let me move some things around here. I'm going to be showing off a little program today. I'm just going to use it as my dummy content. Let me get to where's my switch here. The content I'm going to be showing is a program called Notion. I use it for a lot of my notes. In fact, I do a lot of my show notes and things in there. I've got this one page up that I'm going to be showing here in just a second that is basically, it's just going to show you guys, like, here's my MacBook screen, right? You can see the black bars because it's not quite the right ratio. Let me just crop that so it looks a little bit better for you. So this screen right here, that's my subject for today. I got Camtasia open down here, and you can see it's trying to record this really big area. Now, it looks bigger. It's 3840 by 2160 because it's a Retina display. So if I go to 1920, let me just bring that over here. You can see if I bring this in here, it's filling up a good chunk of my screen. Now I'm going to lose a little bit at the bottom and I'm going to lose a little bit at the top. That's what the light green bar is. So if I was going to record a 16 by 9 screen, this would work pretty well. Now it's adjusting again because it's Retina. But if I wanted to do, let's do something a little bit different. Let's say we want to do a Facebook video, and I could do that. That's perfect size for Facebook video. Now, that's might be my end state, but one of the things you can see here is there's a lock. And if I lock this, that's going to lock my width and my height proportion so I can actually start to record bigger. And why would I want to record bigger? Simple. If you're going to have content that is hard to see in that small little space when it's produced, guess what? You can zoom in during the production. And if you can zoom in during the production, that's going to allow you to give details. Now, in this example, it's maybe not so bad because it's kind of just all these links. And you click into one of these and it's going to give you these linked embedded videos. But I was making a video this week, and this is, let me bring up the rest of Camtasia here. Let me just open up, let's open up the sample project. When you look at Camtasia, and the recorder is going to be a little bit in the way, it can be really hard. I can imagine even right now, you looking at this through YouTube, it might be hard to see these icon details. And what you might want to be able to do is see those details like close up. Because if I say to you, click on the lock on track 1, and you don't know where the lock is, guess what? You could be lost. Now I could say like, okay, if you go down to track 1, I'm guiding and leading you. This is an important part of instructional screencasting. And you'll see the track name, which is track 1 and 3. I could take a long time to describe it. Or instead, during my recording, I could actually just guide you through that process. In fact, let me open up a different project here because I just did this. And why not show things off, right? Let's see. We're going to make this so it's a little full screen. And you can see, I'm going to move this out of the way. Right here, it's very meta looking at Camtasia. I use these animations to zoom in. And I use it. So it's hard to do that though, because one of the things that's going to happen if you record just at one size and you're going to produce at that size, your scale is going to get funky. And this is kind of looking down the road. If I go up to like a 250 point scale, it works. Got to move it around to get it aligned up here. But you're going to start to lose quality. And you got to be careful. You can start to see maybe it's not compressing well, but through the compression of YouTube, but you don't want to lose that quality. You want it to look nice and clear. You want it to be understandable. So I'm not going to save that. So you kind of start to get the sense, right? Like one of the reasons we're creating and we're worried about aspect ratio is so we're not scaling weird. So like if you ever scaled an image, but you scaled it like only horizontal instead of like by the corner and it just stretches it and like makes the picture go wide. That's not cool, right? Like it's not the thing that you want to see. In this case, keeping the same aspect ratio, whatever you start with, you're going to end with it. Whether you go smaller, never bigger, it's going to be really beneficial. The other thing is if you start bigger and end up smaller, you're going to have that flexibility to zoom and pan around the screen, showing off details. I mean, and this is a big concept, right? This is a tough concept to get your head around because if you've never worked with aspect ratio, I find it very complex to deal with and to explain. But I think the thing to keep in mind is pick a size, stick with it, and only ever produce smaller or at the same size. And your quality is going to look great. If you can do that, your screencasts from that point on are going to look really good. So just be really mindful of that decision early on, because then it's just a matter of like, let's say I'm recording in this, see, I can get this, my preview out of the way, get this here, right? So I've got this and I just stretch it out to fit in there, and Camtasia's got some options. Other tools have some options to make it snap in there. But now when I record this, it's going to look fantastic inside of my program. In fact, let's let us do that, right? We can just, actually, I'm not sure how this is going to work with streaming and everything, so we're going to try it. Start recording. I'm not going to worry about my microphone. I'm just going to hit start. It may not work. Here we go. Just with streaming and recording a bunch of stuff, it's kind of wonky. And then it's just going to follow through everything I'm doing, right? That's a screen recording. I'm going to go over here. You can see I've got different things in here, different examples. And in fact, you know what? I'm not showing my screen. I forgot to do that because So anyways, it's basically as I move my mouse around, it's going to follow. It's inside of the green lines, which I don't know that you can see. When I look at my preview, you can't see it. So it's capturing that area. Again, that's one of the challenges with doing live stuff is you never know what's going to exactly show. But when I stop this, you'll get to see all the stuff I recorded when I was just talking to you. I see there's lots of questions. Oh, we got Rochester, New York. The Strong Museum, I believe, is there. Was pretty cool. Netherlands. I've been to the airport. It was a nice airport. We've got India. Welcome everybody. This is awesome. Thank you guys for joining us today. So so here in Camtasia, this is the end recording, and hopefully it's coming back through. It looks like it's only showing. It's not showing Camtasia. Oh, bummer. The challenges, guys, of doing these things. Let me see what we can do. I don't know why it's not showing you guys Camtasia. Where is the right toolbar? I moved everything around so I could screen share today, and it looks like it doesn't want to show me everything. But that's okay, guys. We're gonna keep talking through these concepts anyway because we'll get there. It will work out. That's the beauty of doing stuff live, right? So hey, Austin, Texas, right? Snag it for years. Learn more about Camtasia. Yeah, it's awesome. Let's see. There we go. Guys, I got it. It was set to just show the program and not. So you probably missed a bunch of Camtasia stuff, which I apologize about. Oh, that sucks. Problems of going live. Okay, now you should be able to see Camtasia. So here's what I recorded, basically. I got it inside of this green box. And you can see I just move it around. Okay, now, if I go to scale, again, the aspect ratio, if you scale this, it's going to look proportional if I zoom this in. The way you can tell the size is right now my project settings. So go up to project settings up here. Project settings, you can see it brought it in at kind of a weird side, 1917 by 1080. I'd probably just, I don't know why that did pick that size. I must have not had it quite in there all the way. You can see a little bit of yellow. That's fine. So check out your project setting, and then if you want to produce it to a smaller size, you can do that. And then it's just a matter of getting it to fit, and you might have to resize your actual project image or where you apply it to the timeline. But now I can have all this flexibility so that if I add a custom animation or a zoom and pan, if you're on Windows, same kind of idea. And when it gets to the end of the zoom and pan, I go up to 100%. You can see that now it's, maybe I want to be focused on wherever the mouse cursor is. And so I'd have to find that. So you can play with it in a lot of different ways. So that's aspect ratio. One of the many things that you're going to have to consider that I find challenging in screen recording, right, is like doing this idea of sizing. And once you're through that, though, it's really about what is your content and what is it that you're going to make. Now, another thing I want to talk about, and we've talked about this on the live stream before, is a two-step process of, do you do audio first and then record your screen, or do you record your screen at the same time? Or some people even do this. They record their video and then they record their audio. And we'll get to that in a second. Let me look at a couple questions here, because I know someone over on LinkedIn just said, can you explain resolution display settings 1080/80 by 1800 versus screen size? That's a interesting question. Let me throw this up there so you guys can see that question for a second. I'm not exactly sure what you're asking about in terms of display resolution. So one thing I can say is with like a Mac, you'll notice that if in Camtasia I choose to go 1920 with a Retina display, it's going to have a lot more density of pixels. And so I can actually, in theory, get like this bigger, larger recording. So it might be referring to that, what you're talking about with the size. But here's the thing I would recommend if you're new to this process. stick with a 16 by 9 size, whether that's 1920 by 1080 or 1280 by 720, and go from there. I'd actually try to record most of my stuff at 1920 by 1080, and I can put that in the chat actually, because I know it's number salad, right? By 1080. If your monitor will support that, that's a good size to start at. For our team, when they record their tutorials, doesn't go up to 4K. It's just a lot of data, and it looks like itsy bitsy stuff when you produce it down to a smaller size. They actually do like what would be equivalent of 2K, and I used to know all the numbers for all the resolutions, and I haven't gotten to memorizing 2K or 4K yet. But with 2K, then on Windows, what they'll do is they can do a scaled up inside of Microsoft Windows a little bit, just to make it a little bit bigger. So yeah, I don't know what that 2080 by 1080 or by 1800 is. It's so screen size should like it. Let me think about it a little bit, because maybe I might have an idea, but I want to noodle in my head a little bit as we continue on. So let's talk about this process, right? So what are you guys doing? Are you guys recording your audio first? Are you recording your screen first? Are you doing it together? Because I'm a fan of audio first. In fact, let me go back to Camtasia, because I think I want to show off. Let me get it open here. And again, this is the project I did. I just posted this project on Twitter and on LinkedIn, the end results of it. So let me go to my screen again. You can see here we got Camtasia. Let me just make this a little bigger. There we go. Basically what I did, so from a process standpoint, I was really testing out. I got a new camera, guys, and I'm really excited about it. I was just testing it out. And so what I did is I actually walked through the steps. I just talked myself through it. And just so I could get a good screen recording. Because one thing that I wanted to make sure I was doing is looking at the camera at the right time. And if I wanted to cut away to camera, I didn't want to get an angle like this or this, depending on what screen I was recording on. So what I did is I recorded it as I did it, but just talking to the camera, walking through that process, leaving some time. And then I went back and I just screen recorded it. So I did my audio essentially with my actual little bit of camera, and then I recorded this piece. And then, it was a little bit of editing. I probably spent 20 minutes on this at the most. It's a minute 15 tip about using magnetize on the Camtasia track. And I think it works really well. Like in this point right here, you could see that like I flipped from the screen to here. And the reason it was great, I could just cut out this kind of dead space in my screen recording. Or this, I wasn't asked to do anything. In fact, I don't know if this will play through. But sometimes you just want to go and edit quickly to get everything kind of lined up the way you want. And that serves a couple purposes. First of all, there's nothing to show on the screen, so why show that on the screen? Hopefully, 2, you're connecting with me. And 3, I think it serves as a reset. There's a gentleman, Josh Cavalier. He just gave a great presentation for the Learning Guild, which is a training development organization. If you haven't heard of them, they got tons of free, great content. But he talked about kind of these resets in people's attention. And I think it serves as a nice, just quick reset, right? Like screen. Actually, I did it twice, right? Me talking, introducing it. I made this quick intro in Camtasia using Alpha Track. And then, okay, we got back to screen, and then I reset again. So I like the process for audio first, because once I get it down, I can make my visuals work. I know I can speed it up, I can slow it down, I can add stuff. So I definitely think that is, if you're a beginner, there's some challenges to it. I don't want to say it's easy, but I think it will make more sense once your audio's set that you can manipulate your video faster, better. Now, there is benefit to recording at the same time. Again, if you're investing very little, like time, you're like, I just got to get this message out. I just got to get this report. It doesn't have to be perfect. My colleagues will understand if I stutter or and ah. Just go live. You could just hit record and do it all at once, and that's fine too. So I think that's kind of another idea with screen recording. But ultimately, what you want is a process and a workflow that's going to help you go fast, right? As fast as you can, or really, if fast isn't your issue, to get the quality that you need. So definitely be thinking about some of those things as you're recording. What's your process? Let me just share this, because I know I'm still in Camtasia. Let me bring this over here. TechSmith Academy here. If you go to screen recording basics, I'm much more elegant and I don't mess up the screen at all. But you can see we actually go through and we have a whole course on recording your screen. Things about like, you know, what to do before you hit record. And we won't go through this video. I'm not going to make you watch a video of me talking again, but you can see things like, you know what, there's things that you need to do when you learn to screencast. So, yeah, you're going to set your resolution and stuff like that. We talk about that, but like turn off your notifications. Use a simple desktop background. You can see like for this purpose, for streaming, what I do, I just got the TechSmith logo. That's good branding in the sense. It's nice and clear. It's easy. You know, I don't have any icons, desktop icons, so you can really clean things up. So definitely be thinking about like that part of the process too. Okay, we're at about 2:25. I always like to check out questions. So if you got questions, put them in the chat. We'll keep answering them. I did see a couple come through. Thanks everybody for commenting where you're from. Shonda says, I record screen, then audio. Cool. That's awesome. I would love, Shonda, if I don't want you don't need to write a long answer, but I'd love to hear why that works for you, because I think that's, you know, I'm not here to tell you that's wrong. I think it's a great workflow. It's just different from my workflow, and that's okay. Jacob says, I record screen plus audio, then I'll just repeat myself in the video if I mess up, so I can just cut down to good parts when done. Yeah, that's a great tip. I've also gone back and recorded audio only to put voiceover on parts I wanted to edit. Yeah, for sure. I think there's something to that. I do this in audio when I'm recording my audio. Oftentimes, if you're recording along, you make a mistake, it's fine. I just pause. I'm doing a screen recording too, I just need to back up a little bit. But if it's just audio, I just get myself back to a state where I know it makes sense, and then I just start going again. Another tip here, if you're doing that, and this is more for the visual, it gives you a visual if you got camera. It gives you an audio as well. As I like to do this. In fact, I did this because I was having problems syncing some things up. I just do a quick clap in front of the camera. I didn't want to clap too hard. And then what that gives me is like, I know like where the video should line up with the audio. And so I think that's just another little tip there you can use when you're recording. It also creates a spike on the timeline. If you do it twice, you'll see two lines going up and down on the waveform. And what that will give you is a clear indicator, a clear mark. That's about the spot where I made the mistake. So then you don't have to listen quite as much to everything. Although I like you that you always listen to things. Make sure there's no problems. Santosh says, it's nice to learn more things one can do using Camtasia. Yes, it is. Go check out, if you want more ideas, more inspiration, go check out TechSmith Academy. Go check out our tutorials as well. Shonda says, I want to know what it will look like when making the video. If need be, I can cut or add new when I think about audio. Yeah, that's true. That's a great use case for when you're recording the video first. The one thing I find is I find it hard to be consistent with my audio quality, so it sounds like it changes. But hey, if you've got that part down, awesome. But I do like that idea that you can see what it looks like. And there's other ways to do that. I know one person, he makes a rough recording, just walking and talking himself through it. And then at the end, like, because it's meant to be a more polished video, what he'll do is actually then re-record, like take that, make the audio from it, or re-record the audio with more scripted, more kind of controlled, and then he'll go re-record the audio or the visuals as well. But that's a much, much more process, high quality video. If you're looking for something that doesn't have to be super polished, I think your process sounds good. Jacob says, the only problem is that I shift position in the video, which any careful onlooker can see, but I've started trying to keep the same space during this as well. It is so hard to stay still. And if you're on camera, you can tell I move a lot, and I've got a desk and I've got arms holding my camera and my microphone, and every time I touch the desk, it bounces. If you see that my camera is not as steady as it should be, I just put my hands down. And then I like to do, I move up my chair, like I feel myself slipping, and it's a tough gig. So, yeah, really great comments coming in here, Shonda and Jacob. Thank you guys so much. It also lets me know where I can add inflections or downplay. Are the comments being duplicated based on the number of views? I see many other comments multiple times. Okay, so Shonda, yeah, great point about inflections, gives you that flow. You can see things. Jacob, I think what is happening is the comments get fed into a system we're using, and I don't get to really see the back end too much, what it looks like for you guys. I mean, I'm going to go over on LinkedIn and check it out, but the thing I think happens is it's getting fed through the system, and so you might be seeing some duplicates through the bot that's like trying to, because we're on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube right now, so we're trying to make sure it makes sense to have the comments across. If it's not working, we'll have to let us know. We'll figure it out. So, but thanks again for you guys' comments. So, let me know what other questions you have about screen recording. We're gonna dig into some other things here. Let me go back here to my screen share, pull up kind of because I think you guys are gonna find the TechSmith Academy course, it covers all the details here, and it's really not that long. It's probably as much time as this a little bit longer than the live stream, I'd say, about an hour total, and it's pretty concise, pretty dense. So go check it out for sure. And Shanta, there is a little slight delay in posting probably from when I see it, just all the traveling it's got to do so I can get to read it. But let me go back here to my screen. Oh, wrong one, but that's good too. Okay, here we go. Okay, so you can see a couple other things about screen recording. One of the things that I think is really important is something to think about. And this is one that I think you got to be careful with, but it's good. It's system audio. So we got this course out here about this little lesson about system audio. When you're in Camtasia, let me bring up Camtasia. Maybe. There we go. And you're in your recorder. You can see here, you've got this option for system audio. My recorder might look a little bit different than yours, but same idea on Windows. You might have to install something. What this is going to do is capture sounds coming through your computer. Now, this is something you don't need often. And in fact, more often than not, I'd say you can turn it off. However, if you're not sure, you can leave it on and you can just delete it out of the recording off your timeline because it comes in as a separate track later. But it can be really nice for some context clues. So for instance, if you have notifications that, like, let's say you're teaching a process or system, and one of the things you need the user to understand is that a notification is going to happen and there's going to be a specific sound. You can capture that sound, which is really handy for giving the user context clues about what's going on. Now, a lot of programs probably, you might not have sound, your users might not want sound, and that's okay, but it's just, I want to make you aware of that decision that you're going to need to make, that you can turn system audio on or off. And again, you might need a particular plugin that Camtasia will tell you what you need to do it. Now, the other thing, and I make this mistake all the time, is if you're going to record audio through Camtasia at the same time as your screen, check your microphone. So if you look here, mine defaulted to my MacBook Pro built-in microphone. It's all right in a pinch, but it's not going to sound as good as the microphone I'm talking to you guys through. You can see I've got a few microphones hooked up. I've got, ooh, wow, that's a lot. So you want to make sure you're choosing the right microphone for what you're going to capture. And in fact, the other thing just with any screen recording with audio, make sure your microphone is set up correctly or the best you can so that you get the best quality audio. The last one here that I think is important for screen recording is to webcam or not to webcam. You can see right now I've got this nice little picture-in-picture in the live stream. I like it because I want to connect with you guys, but it's easy enough that if I want to get rid of me as a distraction, which I think is probably a best practice, you can just turn it off. Now in Camtasia, what you'll see, if you have multiple cameras, you can turn those on. I'm going to stick with my MacBook camera. If you click on this little drop down, you're going to see a preview. It helps you get lined up. Now, what are you looking for in a web camera setup? Well, you're looking for things like, are you in frame? Are you going to be out of frame? Like if I move way over, am I cutting off the top of my head? Or what's in my background? Am I lit well? Is too much sunlight coming in? There's lots of decisions here. We cover them all in the Screen Recording Academy course. But just think about this. And here's the thing to really consider is this what you want? Do you want this here? Now, if you can always record it and add it later. You can literally capture your webcam, delete it if you don't need it, or delete parts of it. But if you're going to use it, why are you using it? I want you to think about, so I think a lot about good screencasting is asking yourselves questions. It's like a good script in some ways. And there's someone that once said a good script is you write, and then you take out everything you can. You just keep cutting it back, right? So webcam camera is great because we want to make connections. It's great to see your subject matter's face. It's great to see whoever is talking. However, it can be a distraction. And you want to eliminate distractions because if you're focusing up here in a corner on a button, icon, some process procedure that they need to do, and you're down here talking in the corner, where are they paying attention? They're going to pay attention to most likely to the movement. If you've ever been in like a Zoom call, go to whatever tool you use for web conferencing, where are you staring? Well, you might be staring at yourself, or you're staring at who's moving or talking. And so you want to think about eliminating some of those distractions in your webcam. And you know, again, I don't think it's bad to have a webcam. I prefer this kind of method where I go full screen and then I'll cut back to wrong thing. Got my buttons wrong. Then we cut back to like the actual like screen, right? So we're cutting back to a screen. So we go in between webcam and here. I think that works well for a lot of screen recordings. Again, it's up to you. There's not a wrong answer here, but cognitively speaking, so from a learning brain processing power, you've got one image to pay attention to, and then you've got one hopefully audio track, the voice, whatever they're saying to pay attention to. And if you're in the corner, also moving around, you're going to distract them. The exception to the rule, exception to the guideline, if you will. I think the guideline says there's obviously times when you need to provide from an accessibility standpoint, things like sign language or some other information, and that would be acceptable. You just want to try to not have it be distracting or be thinking about like, okay, really emphasizing so that someone can easily pay attention and do the move back and forth. Because, you know, so that might mean that you're moving the action on your screen closer to that thing, to the person talking, you know, the little picture-in-picture, or to like the sign interpreter, so that way they're not having to scan across the entire video. It depends on how big the video is, I guess. So things to think about when you're setting up your screen recording here. So yeah, Jacob, so let me answer a couple questions. So if you're watching the live stream, one of the things I want to let you know is we're going to be repurposing these videos into a podcast. If you like audio only, it's a little different if you're not seeing it, but Jacob asked a great question, how you're doing the nice overlays with text and images that are not square. So because I'm live streaming, that's not something Camtasia uses. I'm using a tool called Ecamm that pushes to a streaming service that then pushes to Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. So it's really, really nice. Yeah, next. So actually we have another question. LinkedIn user. I don't know. I'm not sure why it's not pulling in your name. So sorry if it's, I'm already talking with you. Ask a good question. Let me put this up on the screen here. Ask the question, if you know you have a high frame rate media, 60 frames per second, to add to a project, should you create a project with a 60 frames per second or FPS frame rate setting? That's a great question. So here's the thing I would say. Really think about long and hard about why you're going to create 60 frames per second. Now, I think I turned mine on in Camtasia that I was going to try to get the highest frame rate because I was playing with it and I forgot to turn it back. Unless you need that really, really smooth look, or you're trying to record a video game, which I don't necessarily recommend Camtasia as its like the primary purpose. Don't use 60 frames per second if you can help it, because it's a lot more data. It's a lot more frames. It's just going to make a bigger project file size. I would actually normally, I convert mine to 30 frames per second. Now, things like the iPhone, you can change it you can record at 60 frames per second. And again, unless you're really going for that really smooth look, I would bring it down to 30. You risk minimally maybe some little choppiness here and there, but I think it should be okay. The other time you could use 60 frames if like you know you're going to be like working with like slowing the clips down and stuff like that in Camtasia. That could give you some more data to work with. I will say that Camtasia it has you can change it to, well, let's just do this. Why talk about it when I can show you guys, right? Let's do this because I wanted to talk about some settings anyways. If you go to Camtasia, again, I'm on a Mac, but you could do the same in Windows. On Preferences, there would be a recording tab here. Let me get so we're focused here. You can see this recording tab, and I've got a target capture rate frame rate. So normally I would just say keep it at 30 frames per second. If you're doing something like it's just pure slides, PowerPoint, and especially if you're worried about file size, you can really drop your frame rate down if you want to. This is like you could just keep it at the default and never touch it, and never worry about it, and be fine. But if I was just going to do just a PowerPoint presentation, no camera video, no animations to speak of, you could go as low as 5 or 10, depending on how much you're going to be changing things. That will make a smaller file, which makes it easier to compress and get out there and share when you render it. So that's just one thing. But yeah, I tend to stay at 30 frames per second. And this is the capture frame rate. So notice it says target capture frame rate, because your actual frame rate is going to depend on so many things. It depends on what else is going on your computer. It depends on what you're trying to capture. It depends on your processor and your memory and your computer itself. So there's so many factors there, whether you're going to get 60 frames a second or not. I would just keep it at 30 or whatever is default in Camtasia. I think you'll just be fine. And then if you do bring in higher frame footage, I'd probably work with it at that 30 frames per second. Just again, because I'm already going to put it on YouTube, who's already going to compress it. I think unless you're really going after a certain quality or certain look, I think it would work pretty well. Does that make sense? Let me know in the comments. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what other questions you guys have. So. Jacob says he uses a Rode Podcaster and a Chaotica eyeball for mic, and yeah, if it goes to a pro stream camera, mic quality is lost. Yep, for sure. LinkedIn user says so the 60 frames per second, they're importing drone footage from search and rescue missions, and we have a specific use specific settings for specific missions. Yeah, I mean, in that case, if it's giving you better quality, so like if you're looking at that drone footage and you're looking for certain things, go for it. Like if you're not worried about file size necessarily, you can work with it. Your computer will, my guess is, depending on your specs on your computer, it can have it might chug a little bit. You might see some slowness on the timeline, but when you render it, it should look fine. So, I mean, again, this is not an ever, always, never kind of thing. It is, you have to think about your project and your needs and then adapt accordingly. And what I'm hoping here is opening up some options for you guys as you look at your starting screencast to say like, oh yeah, okay, I want to try that. Because here's the great thing. If you just save your file and then go try something and you don't like it, you can close it, don't save it, and go back. It's non-destructive editing, so your footage won't get ruined. You can just play with things. And I think that's a good thing to remember. And I want to encourage everyone, whether you're making your first or 1,000th screencast, play a lot. So you're going to learn something by playing. So that's the beauty of this. And you're going to trial and error some things. And hopefully our tutorials that TechSmith has put out there are going to speed that process up. So you're going to have to not get like caught up on the real basic stuff, but you can move on just beyond basic, and you can then start playing with things. That will be the best teacher. Take a course, take a lesson, take a tutorial, and then try it out and apply it. Like there's so many cool things that you can do. All right, Emmanuel, thank you for watching over on Facebook. We're glad you're with us. What laptop Mac would you suggest for Camtasia? I don't know if you meant what laptop type or if you meant what Mac, what type of Mac. I mean, for video in general, this rule of thumb for video creation, video editing, more processor, more memory is always going to be better than less. But I mean, at some point there's diminishing returns, but if you have a budget for it, spend as much as you can getting that processor going. I like Camtasia for Mac. I know a lot of people like ScreenFlow. I know a lot of people are Windows people and they love Camtasia for Windows. use the tool that you've got and use it well. If you're finding that it's having struggles, it's not performing like you want it to perform, figure out what's causing that. You can talk to our technical support teams. They can maybe give you some suggestions and advice. So I hope that helps, Emmanuel. Sometimes it's I don't have a specific question. I like the Mac for my screen recording machine. I have done screen recording through Parallels. Some challenges there because it's Parallels running 2 operating systems. So we've got some things set up. Let me go back to my screen here, and I want to show you again. I want to look at those properties a little bit closer because we talked about the one, right? So I go to my preferences here. We talked about the target capture rate. Here's that plugin for system audio. This is a little tip. When you start recording, it does a countdown. If you don't need that, you can turn it off. Do you want to show the menu bar icon on Mac that's up here? You could do the same thing for toolbars in Windows, I believe. And then you got some options like what happens after you're done recording. So get to go look at your preferences and think about this. If you know every time you start Camtasia, it's like, oh my gosh, I don't like the 3, 2, 1 countdown, turn it off. And if you do like it and you're like, oh, it gives me a good time to just like breathe and then go into it, you've got some options there. In general, I'd say with any screen recording, you're going to want to look at your settings. And for instance, I was doing a project recently where I was bringing in images. I knew I wanted them on the timeline for 15 seconds. Default is 5, but I just changed it 15. So I knew I'd get that extra length whenever I put it on the timeline. I didn't have to then resize every single image. When I was like a soundtrack and then mostly images. I'm like, this is for the birds to do that. So get familiar with your settings. Go in there, look at them. If you're always like are shortening your transition duration, do that. If your annotation duration, you can make the tool that you're using yours. Don't worry. Like if the defaults are like, I don't know any better. I don't know what I want. That's fine. That's really cool. That's perfect. But once you start to realize like you're always doing something, you're always making a change. And if there's a setting that you can do that, you can change it so it's different than what is there, make it work for you. Even if like you might go in there and change this, maybe I'll change this to 5 now because honestly, I probably don't need 15 long second images anymore. The other thing I'll say about screen recording that I think is really important here is get to know some shortcuts. There are a lot of potential shortcuts here and they're very customizable. But one thing, you don't have to learn them all, but learn a few that you're going to use regularly and consistently. For instance, let's see if I can find it here in timeline editing. Good one to know. I know that I use split selected media all the time. And that's on a Mac, that's Command T. I don't remember what it is on Windows. So what that means is, let me go back to my project here. Let me actually just close the recorder because I don't think I'm going to need it. So I'm in my project here. Let's say I want to split this media in 2 and I just hit Command T. And now I can do that. That's really cool. If I got multiple pieces, I'm going to undo that. So it's one more. And now I got 2 pieces here. I got these clips selected. Again, if I do Command T, it's going to cut across both of them. So get to know a few basic hotkeys or keyboard shortcuts. So that way, when you are working on your projects, you can go faster. Every time you do a project, learn a new one. I love learning split is one I use all the time. How to zoom in, like if you got your canvas option, right? So Command equal, Command minus. That's a really good one because then you can, Command equal. And that's not changing the size of my project. It's just showing like the media on the canvas so I can actually focus in on it. You can see it's just kind of what is it looking like at a bigger size? If I actually want to zoom in, there's other ways to do that. But again, take a look at those preferences, those keyboard shortcuts, and just pick a few. That will make you faster at screencasting. Oh, LinkedIn user. Again, I wish I knew your name. I'm sorry, it's not pulling through. It says this is so good. Let's put it up on the screen because I appreciate this. Your TechSmith Cert courses are well worth purchasing. So if you're not familiar with the certification programs with TechSmith, we got Camtasia and we got Snagit. And the way you get access to those is through what's called maintenance. Maintenance is a program that, let's say you want to buy an upgrade or going to buy Camtasia. If you purchase maintenance with either the upgrade or the purchase, it's going to give you the next version for free. You're going to get priority support, and then you're going to also get access to the certification. And the Camtasia certification is about 10 or 11 hours of content that walks you start to finish through various projects, helping you to understand a lot of this stuff in great depth. There's some quizzes that you have to take to get the actual certificate at the end. It's actually broken into two certifications, the Explorer and the Voyager. We did that to kind of make it a little bit like, maybe I don't want to go as deep yet. I just want to get some basics. Then I want to practice, and then I want to go deeper. So I actually had the privilege of working on the Camtasia certification, so thank you. It means a lot to hear that feedback. Love it that people are using it, but just another way to learn. If you have maintenance, you should have gotten that. If you don't have maintenance, next time you go to upgrade, check it out. It's you get the next version included. So if you haven't got Camtasia 2020, you could upgrade to Camtasia 2020 with maintenance, and then you get Camtasia 2021 because you've already paid for it. No extra costs. Actually, I think it works out cheaper to get those upgrades. So thank you again for bringing that up. Oh, Mary, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your name. I was like, usually pulls in a name. I don't know why it doesn't. Okay, let me go back here, guys, so we can. I think we've covered a lot of ground. So here's the thing. Today's intent was not to teach you everything about screencasting. It was just to talk about some different points of it. Again, I want to point out that if you are looking to learn more about screen recording, you're trying to get going, you want to go kind of high level, let me again recommend the TechSmith Academy course. I'll bring it up here so you guys can see that. If I can find my browser, because I've got a bazillion tabs here. There we go. Let me put that back up on screen. Go check out this course in the TechSmith Academy. Again, it's free. Its goal is not to teach you Camtasia. It is to teach you the process and flows of creating screen recordings. And we're going to go through like recording audio and webcam. We're going to talk about recording your screen. We're going to talk about editing. We got two sections. You can see things like, when to zoom in, transitions, talk about editing audio, what to do right before you produce your video, meaning you render it out ready to share. We also did this last section that is, the process of rendering, and then talking about some analytics, things that you should know about, like how do I know my video did the thing I wanted it to do? So check those out. Lots of great content. You can see it's very digestible, small bits and pieces. So before we wrap up today's episode, today's show, whatever you want to call it, we have been doing a segment that I just want to introduce you to some new stuff that's going on at TechSmith. So let's do that right now. All right, each week we've got some new stuff. Oh, look at that. We changed cameras on me. Each week we've got some new stuff that's going on around TechSmith. We're always publishing new great content that I want to make you guys aware of, because I know if you're tuning into the live stream, you're looking for good information. You're looking to get better information than you're finding, and I just want to make it easy. So the first thing I want to point out is this great blog post here. Let me go back to my screen. This blog post is about how to add captions or subtitles to a video. Super important for lots of reasons, folks. It is not just because you want to be accessible friendly. We definitely want to do that, but captions are very powerful because it can help readers follow along better. They can get information even when they can't hear it. And if you're publishing it in a public forum, it can be something that is picked up by Google, and it can help your SEO and ranking so people can find it. So that's definitely one that you're going to want to check out. I think it's a really good one. The next one here is another blog post. So these are all on techsmith.com/blog. I'll put the links in the descriptions with it. Is how to use both asynchronous versus synchronous communication, how to use both to dominate remote work. It's such a catchy title because I want to dominate remote work, right? It's going to give you guys some advice, going through helping you understand some ways that you can use these different types of communication. Like if you're going to you can make quick screencasts, which send with someone that would be asynchronous communication. I did want to point this out because I thought it was apropos for today, given all my mistakes. Said Brian Fanzo, fantastic person. We're lining him up to come on to talk with in a month or so. And he says, only guarantee with live video is something will go wrong. Embrace it, prepare for it, roll with the punches. This becomes so much easier when you go into each live video, remembering that perfection is a fairy tale. Absolutely. I love that quote from Brian. And I think it goes to work that, sometimes things aren't going to work the way you hope they are. Another thing here, we got just 2 more things I want to point out. We're going to jump over to YouTube for this one. This is, if you're looking for a primer on editing video, I actually had the privilege of talking with Jason Vlad. He's our certified master trainer, teaches a lot of Snagit, a lot of Camtasia. We walk through some basic editing steps. This was a precursor to the screen recording basics course or class, so you might want to check it out. We definitely got some good information here that's worth sharing. You can zip through that and listen to Jason's tips and advice. The last thing I'm going to add here as something else that's new here at TechSmith is this other YouTube video. We've been doing a lot to focus on educators. We know right now, things are tough for educators, right? Educators are struggling to figure out how to put their classes together. I know my kids' teachers are figuring out, how to teach in person as well as virtual. My wife works in school and she's trying to help her. As an aide, she's trying to help the teacher figure out. So Chandra Owen, she's one of our awesome instructional designers, put together how to add a question to a video check with Camtasia. If you haven't checked out Camtasia interactive features, there are a few. One of them is knowledge checks, and she's going to talk through a couple different ways you can do that. You could use multiple choice, but you could also use short answer. It's a way to get some feedback, some information to gauge kind of knowledge of the people watching your videos. There is a caveat here that we like to make up front, and Chandra I know makes the same caveat in the video, is that if you do this with Camtasia, you aren't going to be able to host it on things like YouTube or Wistia or Vimeo or like that. You got to have some place that can support the TechSmith Smart Player. Or you could use screencast.com or Nomia from TechSmith as well. So check that out though. If good for educators, good for instructional designers, good for anyone that you want to get maybe some feedback from a video. So those are the things that are new at Camtasia, so at TechSmith, I should say. So hopefully you get a chance to check those out. Once we're done with the stream, I'll take all those links, I'll dump them into the description so you guys can get to them. So I don't have to try to copy and paste and hurry around to do that right this second. A couple last questions here. Nadine asks, let me just add this here, says, I have used subtitles, love that you can change the color. Can you change the font? Only a couple to choose from. I don't believe you can in Camtasia, and let me tell you why I think that's why you can't. Mostly because from an ADA, American Disabilities Act standpoint, there are fonts that are better for captioning than not. And so I think my guess is it's a limitation there, so that to make sure that we're getting close to ADA compliance, if not completely ADA compliant, because you can definitely change things to make it not ADA compliant. So definitely think about that. Think about the experience. You want clear, easy, readable fonts. I'd love to know why you'd like to change the font. I mean, happy to pass that feedback on to development. Can't guarantee that that's something that they'll be able to work on, but would love to know why. Northern Dog Star would love a webinar on integrating Snagit with Camtasia. I love both, but struggle sometimes with the symbiosis. Yeah, let me put that on my list of things to talk about, because there are definitely some things that you can do that will make the flow better. I will say it's a lot of a Snagit to Camtasia flow rather than a Camtasia to Snagit flow, but I think that makes sense. But would love to talk about some of those things that maybe you're not thinking about doing, or ways that we do it as well. And Nadine, yeah, thanks for branding. Sure. Yeah, there might be other ways to accomplish what you're looking for. If you want all your transcript colored, like red or green or blue, be thoughtful again about accessibility, but that's a lot. So yeah, I don't think you can do it, but I think that's part of the reason. Color-wise, yes, you can change it, but from a font standpoint, yeah, maybe you want Helvetica or Proxima Nova or I don't know, one of the many fonts that are out there. I could see that, but so yeah, I'll definitely make a note of that and pass it on to development. So guys, we are just about out of time. Thank you again, everybody, for tuning in. Thanks for commenting. Thanks for sharing with me. Hopefully you found this useful. We're going to be back next week. We've got an educator. She works at the University of Notre Dame, Fighting Irish, and we're going to be talking about creating. What are we going to exactly talk about? Rather than trying to remember off the top of my head, let me just pull up my notes because you guys will be happier. Yeah, educating with resilience. We know that tough times, and there's a lot with teaching online, and some resilience goes a long way. So Crystal DeJager will be back. Will be with us next week. We've got a great things coming up, so appreciate you guys' questions. If you've got things you want to talk to me about, you can find me on social media, Pierce MR. You can tweet at TechSmith. I'm on LinkedIn, on really Twitter and Twitter and LinkedIn. You can find me, or you can find my email address. I'm out there. Or we're actually going to be branding the show here going forward. So the Visual Lounge at TechSmith.com. That's the Visual Lounge at TechSmith.com. I'm also checking that email box, but more on that later. So thanks, everybody. We hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and we'll see you next week.